Building is a massive part of Terraria. Whether you're building a full-on mega structure or just a simple starter house, building can be a pretty daunting process when you don't really know where to start. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the entire building process, as well as including some additional tips and tricks here and there that will hopefully help you guys wrap your head around building and give you guys a better understanding of what actually goes into making a good build. So let's get started. So of course the first thing that you encounter when it comes to building your house is the actual location of where you want to build it. I tend to just usually build mine just on like flat pieces of land. I don't usually build into mountains and stuff like that. So for this build, this specific house, it's just going to be on a flat piece of land. You can build it wherever you want and you can change it to fit the land. But I feel like for most people starting out, it's better to just build it just on like flat grass. Now, before you start building the house, it is important to kind of get an idea of what vibe and style you're actually going to go for. So what I recommend doing and what I tend to do pretty much every time before I start doing a build is I'll just hit up online like Pinterest and that, and I'll just look up like other build designs, just like kind of get inspiration early on. So for example, this house, before I started this video, I just quickly went onto Pinterest and I found this house design, which I quite like the look of the boreal wood and like the living wood as like a 2-layer floor, so I used that to heavily influence this design. So I'll pretty much say that that was the unofficial first step, is kind of figuring out the style, so you know what materials and stuff you need and you're going to use, and you can kind of just picture it before you start building. Anyway, with that rant over, the first actual step of building is considering the shape and the size of the actual build. Now, what I mean by that is you don't really just want to build a structure that's just like all the same shape. Like you just want like a bunch of rectangles, which I am kind of doing that here, but you'll notice that I do change the shape later on. Like I add arches and stuff, and I make each square and rectangle a different size, just so it adds a lot of like asymmetry and it doesn't look too neat. And as I'm going, I'm also just like marking out like the door frames and like the jump ups to get to the next floor. It's just so I can kind of see as everything comes together, and I can decide later if I want to move it, or it just kind of helps me visualize the whole structure. I am just going to speed up this portion of the video just while I just build the rest of the frame, just because it takes a couple of minutes. But basically what I was thinking as I was building was I was kind of imagining the bottom floor as kind of like a diner entrance area, and then the middle room can be kind of like the living space, and then the third floor can be like the chill area. That's kind of how I was doing it. And then I might put my bedroom like in the attic, I was thinking, because I always have an attic in my builds, just because I don't know, I just kind of like having a room in the attic. I just think it kind of looks cool and kind of adds to the build. I was thinking here that I'd either put the bedroom here or just something similar like I usually do, which is like just like a little storage space, but I don't know. We kind of decide that when we get there. Now, if any of you guys at home plan on building this in your own world, then here are the dimensions of each of the little sections. Now, once you've built the outline shape of your base, it is time to begin step 2, which I like to refer to as refinements. This is a very quick step. Basically, what I mean by this is kind of just like finalizing the frame of the structure. So as you can see here, I'm replacing the floor of the base with like slabs, just to give it a bit more of like a stone grounded, strong foundation. And as I was going along replacing the floor, I thought, you know, maybe it would look cool to have just like a bit of a raised floor. Once again, just like kind of just add a bit of pizzazz, you know, like having it be one floor higher than the rest kind of just gives it like a little bit more of quote unquote refined shape. And so here I made it 2 layers of slabs, but then yeah, looking back at that reference photo that I mentioned before, I was like, this isn't right. I didn't mean to do that. We should make a boreal wood instead, which I think looks pretty cool already. Like you can already tell the difference that makes. Like it was very subtle, but it does really just make like a huge difference. Like it's all the little things that go into building. Like if you do a bunch of little things, eventually they'll all come together and they all just like work with each other, and it just really, you come out with a product that you can really be quite proud of. So here I'm just extending the boreal wood to the end of the wall, and then I've had like a little overhang block of slab, which later on I plan on hammering, just to make like a little like stepping up bit. And I also had a platform leading up to it, and I hammered it into like a little stair. Now, as far as the rest of the refinements go, I pretty much just add like a block to each corner, and then I just give it a hammer just so it makes it not look too blocky. Just gives it like a bit more shape, like arch in the room. So yeah, it's like everything just doesn't look like a big square. Like we're playing Terraria after all, you know, we're not playing Minecraft. So yeah, and then I continue upstairs, and I thought, why not also raise this floor up a little bit like I have on the other side. I don't know if you noticed that, but like that's a little bit raised as well. So I was like, this could be cool to have like a little room here with a raised floor. So I tested that out as well. And I just hammered the first block just to give it a little bit of a nice little ramp upwards, you know, and then I did the same on the other side. And then I also went ahead and I painted the wood floors on the very bottom bit, just so it looks a little bit different, you know, a bit of contrast between the blocks. I think it looks good. I guess you could say that's kind of one of the tips, is you really want to take advantage of the paint feature in the game. So like, you don't really need a block that has the right color, as long as it's the text you're looking for. That's all you really need. You'll see later on how we take bigger advantage of that, but paint is your best friend, put it that way. And then at this point, I had a fairly good idea of what I wanted this room to be. I was thinking that it would be kind of like diner areas, so I thought it'd be cool to give it like a little bit of a unique shape to it. So I rounded it out a bit. It took me a minute to figure it out, to be honest. I was trying to like figure out how big and how wide and all that I wanted it to do, and what the overall circle oval shape should look like. By the end, I think came out pretty good, but yeah, I think it's just one of those, once again, it took 2 seconds to do, pretty straightforward, pretty easy, anyone can do it, but it does make quite a difference. Now, to save you guys the boredom, I don't really want this to be a 45-minute video, so I'll speed up this part just so you don't have to sit through it, but just kind of pay attention to what I'm doing and just really try to familiarize yourself with the little changes that I am making, just so you kind of get the full idea, and I think you'll begin to see how all the little changes all come together in the end. Okay, once you've made all the refinements, it's time to begin the walls part of the build. Now, this stage is definitely a make or break part of the build. Like, you could build the most beautiful structure ever, but if you don't use the right walls, it can really knock it down like a lot of points. So what I've decided to go for here is not go overly complicated, but still go for something that will look nice. So I've gone for a pretty similar style as I did in the last video, except instead of using the like planked walls and like the cobblestone walls for the bottom bit, I've gone for the grey slabs instead, because that's the same block that I used for the floor. These are the slabs. So for this first room, I've just gone, the bottom 2 tiles are the stone slabs, and then I built wood beams just around it, or just wooden walls, sorry, around it, and then just a window in the middle. Very basic, like super basic, but you can't tell me it doesn't look at least half decent. I think it looks pretty good considering how basic it is. And then I pretty much just do the same thing for the top floor, except I add a bit of bore reel wood in there as well, just to give it a bit of an extra touch, bit of extra oomph, you know? And bang, just like that. Only 3 or 4 different wall types used, and it looks pretty darn good. That's already 2 rooms down, and like that took 2 seconds. Like, think about what it could have looked like if I just used normal wood walls. Like, obviously, it's still, look, it's not great right now, but I think considering the alternative, I think we smashed it. Now for this second room, there's not really going to be a whole lot really going on here. It's more of just like the stairwell room. So there'll be just like a couple things in here, but it's predominantly for the stairs. So I've gone for stone slabs on the edges. I put borer wood on the right wall. I didn't, I'll change that later because it's not it. But then I've gone to put just normal wooden walls inside like where the platforms are. I do that remains consistent in like the whole build. I'll put just normal wood walls inside where the platforms are. They're not going to be like that forever. It is temporary, but there will be a little bit there, but I can't just leave it like that. And then for the middle of the room, I do kind of like a combination of stone slabs, windows, and grey brick. It's predominantly grey brick because it gives it like kind of like a watchtower kind of effect. I know it's not really a watchtower, but I don't know, it just kind of looks cool with a little window in the middle, you know. And then I've also just added wooden beams on the left side, just to give like a little pillar. Once again, adding realism to the world, you know. You kind of want the world to have logic and make sense, so holy voice crack. Comment voice crack if you heard that. That was embarrassing. Anyway, and then I just finished it off with some wooden walls, just as why not? Looks cool. And yeah, I think we smashed it. Anyway, the next room, I decided to do like a little like diner thing, as I mentioned before. So I thought this would be like a nice little posh area. So I did like a little bit extra here, sort of, not really, I don't know. I just did like wooden walls on the top bit to fill in. I'll put a bit of stone at that in that little 2-block gap there, which I think looks kind of dope. I don't know, tell me what you think. And then I've done borer wood, which is really the main flashy part of this room. I think the borer wood is what really like separates the blocks the most. Looks pretty flash, I think. And then I do wooden walls kind of like the pillars as well, because I don't really like using wooden beams all the time, especially when you want to use actual blocks. So you just use actual wooden walls as it, and it's fine. And then to get a little bit creative here, we've actually going to use some marble wood walls as like, I was debating between marble blocks and then whatever the hell this block is that I'm placing. I don't know. I was just using Heroes Mob, just kind of testing out a million walls. I cut it out because you don't want to see me try and airing a million walls. Like literally, at one point I accidentally placed cursed brick walls, and I haven't defeated Skeleton on this world because it's my building world. So I literally was trying to destroy it for 2 minutes, didn't realize what was going on, and then I was like, hang on, I gotta bloody kill Skeleton before I can destroy the walls. So I'll show a little clip of that in the top if you want to see that. But yeah, I ended up deciding to go for the marble walls. They kind of just look like wallpaper, I guess, and then I kind of use them as curtains on the edges, and then I've just put some windows down. And yeah, I think this room looks pretty good. So on to upstairs. Now honestly, this room you can pretty much just skip. I tried to do something cool by giving it like a wallpaper with like a colored paint, so I wasn't too worried on the color so much yet. I was kind of just picking something that had a cool texture, and then I painted over it. But I do end up just completely deleting everything I do, so you can keep the wood stuff the same, but all of like the alternating color wallpaper blocks, don't even bother about that, to be honest, because I literally just redo this whole room. So I'm sorry. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm sorry. Now for this upstairs bit, we do a very similar vibe to what we do downstairs. We pretty much just match the stairwell kind of exactly. We just do slab walls on the edge again with the bore reel on the edge. I know I said we remove it, but I was wrong. I actually ended up keeping it. So whatever. But yeah, so 2 slabs on the edge with some bore reel, and then we pretty much go for grey brick walls on 1 block on the edges, and then we fill all of it with just stone walls. So like the cave stone, just that wall. And then I also just add a window in the middle just to make it, you know, get some little bit of natural light in to make it look a little bit cool. And then I also just add some grey brick walls just around the window just to give it a more defined frame and just have it really pop out more. And then this little open bit here is also a stairwell area to get to the next floor. So here I decided to go for a wooden style room this time rather than sticking to the stone. I just felt like it'd be a bit too awkward having it be 2 stone rooms next to each other. I just thought that'd look a bit odd. So I decided to go for wood here. Just a combination of normal wood walls and then borer wood walls, and then I just added like some stone slabs just on the bottom bit because that'll be like under the stairs sort of area. So I just think it looks kind of nice. And then for this next room, I kind of just go for a pretty basic, it's very similar to my last video's style, where I just had the bottom tiles are stone brick, but then I added the second tile above that is stone slabs, just because it gives like a nice little combination on it. And then I just added a pillar in between them, just like added normal wood walls. And then I connected it like going across to make it kind of like bars of wall. Like, you know, when like you walk down a hallway, you can see like the rims of it as it comes up. So it's kind of going for that sort of vibe. And then I just filled it with boreal wood just to finish it off. So yeah, pretty basic. Now into the upstairs bit. I decided to go for a more creative and unique style compared to the other rooms for this specific area. Both of the rooms follow the same sort of formula, same structure. So I pretty much just go for grey brick walls on the bottom tile floor, and then up the left wall, I added wooden walls going across the whole roof, and then just one pillar in the middle on the first room. And then I filled all the open space that's left with rich mahogany wood walls that I painted to be brown to look more like the other walls around it. This way it just gives it more of like a different texture, so it makes it look really different to the rest of the build, but then it still all works with the rest of the build having to be like the same color and stuff. Onto the final room of the house, I do decide to turn this into the bedroom at this point. So what I decide to do with it is I start by just adding some stone walls just as the bottom half, just like as a foundation to kind of work around. And then I fill one tile at the roof with the wood walls, just as like, you know, the top beam that is pretty consistent in most of the rooms. And then I do grey brick walls on the edges just to be kind of like pillars on the edge of the walls, so a bit of foundation. And then I fill everything in with just boreal wood to finish it off. And then just to do some last finishing touches, I just do the walls of the boreal going down to the ground to kind of form like a U shape, like a horseshoe, because I think that look quite nice. And then I just added grey slab walls in the middle and then a window, just to kind of give the window a frame, and it's a bedroom, so of course you have to have a window. And that about finishes that room. And with that, it is time to begin the next stage of the building process, which is the roof. Now I decided to put a little patio here, so I just quickly broke the wall and added a door. But to begin the roof, I typically start with the sides, and I'll just do like a little overhang foundation bit and work my way up to the main part of the roof, which is of course, you know, you'd think it'd be the very top bit where like it's pointy and stuff. One strong tip here is really just take advantage of using the hammer as you're going through. So as you can see here, I built a couple blocks and then I hammered them into ramps just to make it more of a curved shape and make it look like it's really like actually attached to the structure itself. And then I move up to the middle section and I actually replaced some of the corner block, like the wooden structure frame bit, with actual slabs, just so the roof looks once again more built into the structure, so it looks like it's all connected and stuff. And then I decided to build it in pretty much the same style as I build almost all of my roofs, which most people build it this way as well, just because it's a pretty common way to build a roof, but it gives a pretty good effect. Is you basically just place like 2 layers or so of like the flat bit with the actual block of the roof, so in this case stone brick, and then you have like the edge of it be like a wall going up, like you can see on the left how it's like a couple blocks going higher, and then you'll fill the open bit with the grey walls. So I've decided to go for that bit here. And then as I was building it, I realized that I haven't actually planned out where the chimney's going to go yet, so I quickly just planned that out and just built it into this little side bit here. I do like having chimneys in like all my builds, but yeah, here I wasn't really too sure. There wasn't really a good spot for it to go, so I was like, this flat bit is kind of the main spot, but all the buildings below didn't really work, so I just cut into the wall and then I built my own little makeshift chimney room kind of thing, which is pretty different to how I usually do it. I usually just go for just stone walls leading up and then just like a fireplace at the bottom, whereas here I've decided to go for a campfire. And yeah, I think it took me a while to figure it out. I kept making it too thick and I couldn't figure out how to get this shape to work. But then I ended up working out, and I think I'm reckon the final result was pretty good. So after about 5 minutes of trying to figure out how to bloody build that chimney, we can finally continue with the actual roof. So I pretty much just placed a couple more brick blocks and then once again hammered it just so it looks like it's actually connected to the chimney. I do think that roofs early on are one of the harder things to grasp at first, But once you kind of understand how to actually build a roof the first time, you'll pretty much be able to replicate it on any scale that you build your structures. It's kind of hard to grasp at first, but once you do get the hang of it, it does become pretty easy, pretty simple, and you'll find that, yeah, you do really just get better at it over time, and you'll be able to get quicker at it, do more complex things, and everything will just come together pretty simply. And you'll eventually get to the stage where you can pretty much build anything, and you'll know what kind of roof, what type of roof, what needs to be hammered, all that, to make it all go together and fit together like a nice puzzle piece. Because that's what building really is in the grand scheme of things. It's a structure, it's a frame, it's walls, it's furniture, and it's a roof. All those things come together, and you build yourself a masterpiece. And of course, for the roof itself, I built this out of grey brick, because that's kind of like the go-to roof building structure. Of course, you can use other blocks. You can pretty much use any block in the game, really, and you just paint it, but I find that grey brick is pretty simple, pretty easy. It's also, if you're playing like a non-creative world, like I'm not doing here, it's also very easy to get, so it's easy to find. That's one of the pros of this whole build as well, is all the materials I use are really easy to find. I don't usually use complicated blocks that like you have to paint and stuff. I do like building with kind of nature's blocks that you can find literally from the very start, so then you can start building the good structures at the very start of the game. And then I went over to the chimney again, and I just added this little like canopy roof thing at the top, just because it looks a bit silly if it's just an open tube, you know, going straight down. And then I just grabbed some smoke blocks and made it into a chimney. Just the smoke is a little bit hard to kind of get. You kind of just, what I do really is I just place a whole lot of blocks, like as you saw, and then I just break it until I kind of get the shape that I'm looking for. That's kind of how I go about doing smoke. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and I feel like I got it here pretty quickly, but yeah, sometimes it can literally take like 5 minutes. And then we just go back up to the top bit, and then we build the, I guess you'd call it the main part of the roof. It's like the pointy bit. It's kind of the first thing you notice, I think. So yeah, just build like a zigzag going upwards to, I like putting mine in the very center of the attic room. That's kind of the good thing about having the attic as well. It's kind of like the center marking point that you can use as like a reference point. So I did that, and then I just continued the zigzag going down until I reached obviously the other end of the building. And then once you've done that, you just want to go ahead and hammer all the blocks until it's like a smooth ramp going up. And if you're wondering why I've left all these kind of open bits inside the roof, is I find that it looks a lot better to have bits of openness with wood and like beams in there to kind of show the structure and like, I guess you could say, the integrity of the building itself. One, to add, once again, like immersion and realism to the build itself, but also just, it looks a lot better than if you just have solid roof just there, you know, like rather than having a really thick roof, it's good to have like open bits with wood in there, if you know what I mean. I think it looks cool. You obviously don't have to do that, but I think it works. And then as I was building down and I connected to the roof again, I saw that there was a pretty good spot here, good opportunity to build another beam just in this little room here. So I went ahead and did that out of just stone brick and then the slab walls. I once more built like a little overhang bit here, just so once again it looks like it's actually connected to the build itself. And then I followed the same formula that we did on the other side, where you just build like a pillar going upwards, just like at the edges of the roof to mark the edge of the roof. And then you just fill it in with grey brick walls. One thing you can also add on to these builds, which just, I don't really see it happening a lot really with other builds. It does happen a lot, but it doesn't happen as much as it should, is you can use metal fences to kind of be like the spikes coming out of the roof. So that's what I've done here. I've tried placing 3, but it didn't really work. So I do end up just going for 1 in the end. But what you kind of do is you get slabs and you connect it across those, like on top of the walls that we placed earlier, as you can see here. And then you just top it up with those iron fences on top of them. And yeah, it's just like one of those minor details that it's often overlooked. But like, if you just look at the right side of the build and the left side where it's not there, it really does make quite a big change. So I would just highly recommend that when you guys build any of your roofs in this sort of style as well, you gotta add the platforms with the metal fences on top. Like it adds so much, and it's literally, it's a cheap resource as well. Like everything I'm using, it's all cheap resources. So like there's actually no reason to not use it. And then just to finish off the roof, I just added this little ledge bit here next to the window, just out of the same grey brick blocks, and then I hammered it a couple of times just to, once again, make it so that it actually looks like it's connected to the structure itself. And now with the roof complete, it's time for the next stage of building, which is texturing. Now for this step, you want to go ahead and get yourself a paint sprayer with the colored paint of the blocks that you're changing. And what you basically want to do is just grab a variety of blocks that have sort of a similar texture to the block you're replacing. For example, if you're going to use grey brick, then you can use just normal stone. Or here I'm using Titan stone and mud blocks that are painted grey. And I'm just going ahead and replacing a lot of the blocks underneath the foundation, just so it looks like the entire build structure is kind of built into the ground, like how a normal house would be in real life, as you need a strong foundation so the house doesn't blow down. Texturing is definitely one of the more important steps on the list. I know I always talk about it, but if you do play Minecraft, for example, you would know that texturing is one of the most important parts of making a build look good, and it is the exact same for Terraria. I typically do most of my texturing to underneath the base as well as the actual roof, because there's a lot more blocks that you can get away with texturing, especially a roof would be a lot more weathered than on the inside. So I once again use the same combination of just mud blocks and Titan blocks and just replaced a lot of the bricks with that block just to make it, give a more weathered effect, as if, the house has been around the block quite a bit. This step is definitely the quickest one, so we're already finished with that one, and now it's time to get into the furnishing stage. Now this stage is one of the more fun ones, but it's also quite annoying because it is a lot of trial and error, just kind of placing stuff and just seeing what works. It can be a bit frustrating trying to find what to do to each room, but I find that the easiest way to kind of go about it is kind of assign a purpose to each of the rooms and then build around that. So for example, this first room, I kind of treated it as sort of like a study, library, bookkeeping sort of area. So I've just gone ahead and placed 2 bar tabletops just as like a nice little table reading area. And then I've just added a bar stool as well, just because that's sort of like a nice looking furniture type. And then obviously, because it's a bar library area, I've just added a bunch of books and candles just to kind of fill in the whole area, all the blank spots. So I'll just place some platforms above it, added some books down, added a candle on the table, and then I've done pretty much the same thing just upstairs. So I've added a couple platforms and then I've hammered them to act as like the stairs going upwards. Added a couple candles, added a barrel in the room just to fill kind of the area as well. I added a weapon rack as well. I don't really want to have a lot of books there because I feel like that'll look too sort of full. So I feel like the weapon rack kind of adds like a nice different sort of touch to it. And then I've just pretty much repeated what I've done downstairs. Add a bunch of platforms, bunch of books, and then a banner just to top it off. And so yeah, as you can see, we use some pretty basic resources that you can get, and you just kind of really just want to fill the space. Just give the room a purpose, build around that. As you can see, it's not really too complicated, but it works, it looks pretty decent. It looks pretty full, but not too cluttered. It's pretty good. And for this next room, the main aesthetic of it is pretty much just a stairwell. So I've just done a couple rows of platforms, and then platforms hammered into stairs leading up to the next floor. I've decided not to go too complicated for my staircases for this build. If you see online, there's a lot of different ways you can go about building staircases. They all look good and they all work, so it's pretty much best to just decide early on what kind of style you want to go for before you build, just so you can ensure that you leave yourself enough room for it. So I've basically, as I said, just gone for just some simple platforms and then just some railroad tracks just to kind of top it off, and then I'll paint those brown, and then that kind of just looks like handlebars that you see on staircases usually, like the railing, and then you just add some ropes underneath it as well, just so it looks like it's actually going down to the ground. One thing you should also do here as well, which I actually failed to do because I'm a bit silly, is you should put wooden walls behind the staircase so that it looks like it's actually wooden steps going up, because right now it's just stone walls, which it doesn't, like, it's fine, but like it just could be better. It's just one of the things that I did miss, so if you do end up building this in your own world, then you could consider making that change. So now that the staircase is done, we kind of need to populate kind of the blank sides of the room that are on the edges. Once again, it's just about filling the space just so it doesn't look too empty and awkward. So I've just gone for a candle on the left side and then a grandfather clock on the right side with just a barrel in the corner. And then if you recall, we built this room to kind of be like a diner dinner area, and that's why we've done the fancy white curtain wall things. So the goal here is just kind of place random stuff to make it look like it's a dining area. So what would you think, like a banquet table, and then like chairs and stuff with like little plates and things like that, you know, cups and plates. So I basically just did that on the left side, where I've just placed a dresser and a table painted brown with just a bowl, mug, and candles. And then I added some bookshelves just above it just to kind of fill the top half of the space as well. I then went ahead as well and added some platforms up on the top half, and then just put kegs on it, just because it's, you know, the dining bar area, so people are going to want booze, you know, they're going to want drinks, so that's quite fitting for the aesthetic of the room. And then to finish off the room, we go to where the actual curtain bit is, and I just placed 2 banquet tables with some stools next to it, and I painted the kind of top half of the table just to kind of show it as if like it's a, you know, like the sheet that goes over tables at like a restaurant, and like sometimes they're colored. Like if you go to like a bougie restaurant, they'll have like red sort of top table bits. I was kind of going for that kind of aesthetic, so I started with white, and I didn't mind it. I thought it was pretty good, but it kind of blended too well into the curtains of the back wall, so I then ended up changing it to a more red vibe, which I think suited it quite well. And then after painting the top of the table, I just went ahead and added the glass bowls and mugs to the table, as well as some glass lanterns just above, with a red banner just hanging from the roof as well, just to finish her off. And now the downstairs bit is complete, so we go on upstairs. So with this room, as you may notice that the walls are different to how I did before. I ended up just removing the paint completely because I really wasn't a fan of what I'd done, but I pretty much just decided to turn this also into a nice other little study library area. So just add a bookshelf, a table, some books, you know, stuff like that. So pretty simple, this room. And then for the upstairs bit of the stairs, once again, its main purpose is to just be a stairwell, so you don't really have to have too much decoration here. So I just started off with a nice chandelier at the very top bit, just to add a bit of a light source to the room. Just next to it, I added just a shelf with some books on it, and then just a simple dresser underneath that I've painted to be brown as well, just to once again match the color of the rest of the build. And I've just added a candle on it, as well as another book, and that is that room done. And now on to the next room, which also happens to be a stairwell, which I'm going to say I've got a lot of stairwells in this build, which is quite funny, but I, once again, pretty much match what I do downstairs, where I just build the 2 platforms going up with the hammered stairs as, like, you know, the actual stairs bit going up. And then I also do the same sort of stair style, where I add just like the 1 bit of rope as like the connection bit, with the minecart tracks going up to the top. And then we also go ahead and paint these brown because they are the railings of the stairs, so we don't really want them to be silver, so we do that. And then just underneath the stairs to finish off the room, I just add a keg underneath the stairs bit on like a platform, raised platform, with a candle as well as a barrel. And then moving on to the next room, I wasn't 100% sure kind of what to do for it, so I decided to go pretty basic, just a standard table with some chairs with a dish plate on it. And then I just placed platforms with a candle and book on it, as well as a sword rack, just to fill in that last empty space. You'll notice that I have been saying a lot about, you know, just placing stuff to fill the space, which is pretty much the whole kind of idea that you want to go for when you are furnishing your base. Is you don't really want open bits on the walls or in the room or anything. Like, you don't want it to look too clustered, but you don't want it to look really empty and open. So you just want to, yeah, just make sure there's no really empty spots kind of anywhere. You want to have like a 1 block gap in between things. So for this room, I've just placed a barrel at the very top bit of the stairs, and then just a lantern on top with some fancy dishes attached to the walls just next to it, and then just a bookshelf and banner in the top corner. One of the best tricks that I use to fill the space of the rooms, which you'll notice that I've pretty much done in every single room in this house, is you just place a platform with a book on it. Literally anywhere in the wall. It can be in the corner, it can be in the middle of the room. It's just a great simple way to, as I mentioned, fill the space to make it not look super empty. And now for this room, as you can see, we are getting closer and closer to the roof, which, as I said, is where the bedroom's going to be. So in the context of my character, he would probably be spending a lot of his time in this room, as it is close to where his bedroom is. So I've just put a dresser here, which is, I guess, where he put his clothes. So then I just put a piggy bank on it as well. And of course, we need the stairs leading up, so I went ahead and added those in too. And then for this little section here, I thought that this would be a good spot just for a table and some chairs for him to, you know, sit down and just think about what boss he's going to fight next. I also just added a candle on the wall, as we need a light source in this room. You don't want to just be sitting here in the dark, because that would just be strange, you know. And of course, every room needs its books. I need my books. You need to fill the space somehow, so I put some books on the table, and I also put a book in the corner. Now it's bedroom time. Arguably the easiest room in the house to decorate. It basically consists of just a bed in the middle of the room. I added some dangling rope up here in the corner, which I thought looked somewhat cool, as well as just a book in the corner and a candle. And then I thought it would also be cool to just add some like gold piles. So I just quickly put a little gold pile just in front of the bed, which I thought looked quite nice. I tried placing one behind the bed as well, but it looks kind of weird having it just be a block. I don't really like it. I like when it's like a pile, so I did that. And with that, the internal part of the decorating is done. The last thing I wanted to do was just quickly add a hanging sign just out front of the door. So I quickly just did that, and that is the decorating part over. And now for the last stage of the building process, we have the scenery. This stage is also pretty overlooked when it comes to just building just a generic kind of house, but it really does just add to the aesthetic and the whole immersion of the experience so much. So what I usually do with pretty much most of my builds is I'll always have a bench and tiki torch outside like I've done here. I'll also add a bunch of fencing and primarily living leaf walls and grass walls. So as you can see, I'm just kind of placing them all kind of randomly spread, intertwining with the fences, so it kind of looks like the grass is going over the fences and stuff. And then I'll pretty much go to the other side and do the exact same thing, just place a whole bunch of living leaf walls and grass walls, as well as a tiki torch and another bench. And then I'd kind of like doing like sort of custom trees here. It's good to have normal trees as well, but being able to build your own tree, you can make it as big and as cool and like as fancy as you want it to be. So think about how a normal tree would look, you know, it's like it'd be thicker at the bottom than it would near the top. It kind of like slims out. And so pretty much the way that I go about building these custom trees is I'll just place wooden fences, just kind of like a tower going upwards as like the base tree trunk. And then I'll just get some living leaf walls, and I'll just do like a wrapping around sort of shape where it's thicker at the bottom and it gets skinnier and skinnier as it goes up. And the kind of the way you want to build it is so that you've got the leaves overlapping the wooden fences, but you keep some of the wooden trunks exposed so that it still looks like an actual tree. Another quick tip that you can do here is to once again get the paint sprayer handy, and you just want to grab some coral and some green paint. And what you want to do is you want to just basically place the coral just randomly, and every time you place it, it'll have like a different coral shape type, if you know what I mean, and it kind of just looks like random bushes. So you just want to kind of place them in just random spots, and they just look like shrubs, really, just bushes, you know. And again, it's just one of those like little changes where you just do little changes here and there, and eventually it all comes together to just create a pretty good finishing product. And so to finish off the scenery, I just came over here and I placed a banner up outside the house, a tiki torch, and a bench. And now the build is done, so here is the finished product. But that about wraps up today's video, guys. I hope you guys found this video helpful, and if you guys want to see more building videos in the future, then show this video some love and I'll keep making them. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you legends in the next one. Bye bye.